Scene script. Have you ever wondered why Africa, a continent so rich in resources, is often associated with poverty? Today we're going to unveil this paradox. Africa is a land of abundant natural wealth, a treasure trove of resources that can boggle the mind. Encompassing a staggering 30% of the Earth's remaining mineral resources, this continent is a veritable gold mine, quite literally. From gold to diamonds, from platinum to cobalt, Africa has it all. It's as if Mother Nature decided to bless this continent with a disproportionate share of her bounty. And it's not just about shiny metals and precious stones. Africa is also rich in oil, accounting for around 10% of the world's reserves. Countries like Nigeria, Angola, and Algeria are key players in the global oil market. Their reserves sought after by nations near and far. But the wealth doesn't stop there. Africa is also home to vast forests, fertile soils, and diverse wildlife, resources that have the potential to contribute significantly to the continent's economy. From timber to cocoa, from coffee to exotic fruits, the African soil yields a rich harvest that feeds millions around the world. So you might ask, with all this wealth, shouldn't Africa be one of the wealthiest continents in the world? Theoretically, yes. Africa's resource wealth, if properly harnessed and managed, could indeed transform it into a land of prosperity and abundance. The continent's vast resources could fuel industries, create jobs, and improve the living standards of its people. Yet here's the paradox. Despite this wealth, Africa remains one of the poorest continents. Why is that? The answer to this question is complex and multifaceted, involving a tangled web of historical, political, and economic factors. But one thing is clear, there's a disconnect between Africa's resource wealth and the well-being of its people. As we delve deeper into this puzzle, we'll explore who benefits from Africa's resources, how much wealth they generate, and why this wealth doesn't seem to trickle down to the people of Africa. This is the African resource puzzle, a riddle that has perplexed thinkers and policymakers for decades. But despite this wealth, Africa remains one of the poorest continents. Why is that? It's a paradox that begs the question, who really benefits from Africa's resources? To unravel this perplexing paradox, let's take a look at the key players who reap the rewards from Africa's rich bounty. At the forefront, we find a diverse array of countries and multinational corporations, all drawn to Africa's wealth of resources. China, for instance, is a primary player in Africa's resource market. The Middle Kingdom's voracious appetite for raw materials to fuel its booming economy has led to substantial investments in Africa. From oil in Angola and Sudan, to copper in Zambia, to rare earth minerals in the Democratic Republic of Congo, China's footprint is evident across the continent. Next in the lineup, we find the United States. Africa supplies a significant portion of America's oil, with countries like Nigeria and Angola leading the pack. Additionally, U.S. corporations are heavily invested in mining precious metals and gemstones, including gold, diamonds, and platinum. European countries, too, have long-standing ties to Africa's resources. France, for example, derives a large chunk of its uranium, a crucial component for nuclear energy, from Niger. Belgium, on the other hand, has a notorious history with the Democratic Republic of Congo's diamond industry. But it's not just countries. Multinational corporations also play a significant role. Companies like Anglo-American, BHP, and Glencore extract billions of dollars worth of resources from the African soil each year. These corporations operate vast mining projects, bringing up everything from coal to cobalt, gold to gemstones, and copper to chromium. Yet, despite this influx of foreign interest and investment, the wealth doesn't seem to trickle down to the African people. The continent, abundant in resources, paradoxically remains one of the poorest in the world. So, we return to our original question. Who really benefits from Africa's resources? The answer, it seems, lies thousands of miles away from Africa's shores. These countries and corporations reap enormous profits from Africa's resources. Meanwhile, the continent itself remains impoverished. So, how much wealth are these countries and corporations actually gaining from Africa's resources, you may ask? The answer is staggering. Africa boasts a myriad of resources, including precious metals, oil, and gas, which together contribute to a multi-billion-dollar global industry. It's estimated that the continent's mineral reserves alone are worth a whopping $24 trillion. That's a figure that surpasses the combined gross domestic product of every single country on the planet. But let's delve deeper. Take, for instance, the Democratic Republic of Congo, a country rich in cobalt, a key component in electric vehicle batteries. Despite being the source of over 60% of the world's cobalt, the country received just over 2% of the global revenues from the cobalt industry in 2023. Nigeria, Africa's biggest oil producer, is another example. The country produces over 2 million barrels of crude oil per day, yet the wealth from this lucrative resource rarely trickles down to the average Nigerian. In fact, over half of the population lives in poverty. And then there's South Africa, the world's largest producer of platinum and chromium. Despite the country's mineral wealth, more than half of its population lives below the national poverty line. These examples highlight a glaring discrepancy. The wealth generated from Africa's resources often doesn't benefit the people living on the continent. Instead, it flows to multinational corporations and foreign governments, leaving many Africans in poverty. This situation is further exacerbated by issues such as tax evasion and illicit financial flows, which drain Africa of billions of dollars each year. This means that even the wealth that should be staying in Africa often isn't. So what are we left with? A continent endowed with a wealth of resources, yet struggling with widespread poverty. It's a stark contrast. Enormous wealth gained from Africa's resources, and yet widespread poverty persists within the continent. So what can we do about this situation? Well, it starts with knowledge. The more we understand about the exploitation of Africa's resources, the better equipped we are to make a difference. That's why it's crucial to continue learning about the issue, to delve deeper into the intricacies of trade, politics, and economics that surround it. Supporting organizations that strive to ensure Africa's resources benefit its people is another powerful way to help. These groups are on the front lines, advocating for fair trade policies and ethical practices, and don't underestimate your own influence. By choosing to support ethical companies, we send a clear message about the kind of world we want to live in. Moreover, we can lobby our governments to enact fair trade policies to ensure that the wealth derived from Africa's resources is shared equitably. It's time to ensure that Africa's wealth benefits its people. Together, we can make a difference.